Hello, it's Janet Diane Moria Swerdlow for Expansions.com, and as you already know, Stewart was in Poland, then he was in Belgium, now he's on his way to Tampa for Guy Fawkes Day, aka Stewart Swerdlow's birthday. And I know several of you are planning on meeting him there in Tampa, so that's fabulous. He will enjoy that. This is the first week of November 2017, as you know. And one thing that I wanted to talk to you about before we get involved in the news is, first of all, I want you to understand that everything that's going on in the world right now is there to instill fear. Because the more fearful you are, the easier it is for the global handlers to control you. So I want you to know that this month on my personal blog, we are going to be talking, well, it's November, so we've already started. We are talking about programming triggers, and we are also talking about your own personal process and how to perfect that. So if you don't have a membership in Expansions.com, this is a great month to start it, because around the holiday season, you know, there are plenty of programming triggers out there. There are family triggers. Everything is out there that is designed to put you into stress, fear, anxiety, hate, anger, you just name it, it's out there. And we want to keep you sane and safe and protect you from yourself more than anything else, because everything out there is, of course, a reflection of you. So with that said, I want to tell you again another interesting story I'm going to tell you this before I go into the today's news, but it's called The Butterfly People of Joplin. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I have talked about this story on and off on my personal blogs for a number of years. In May of 2011, some of you may remember, a deadly tornado devastated the town of Joplin, Missouri. And at that time, when it was all over with, there were stories that started coming forward of butterfly people. Now remember, this is the heart of the Bible Belt. So most people down there aren't down there studying about these kind of things that you and I are talking about. But after the destruction had ended, after the wind was gone, children who had endured this storm began telling family, friends, and relatives about the stories that they saw of these butterfly people. They said the butterfly people protected them during the storm. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch reports that there were two common descriptions of the sightings. They always had the same foundation, that the tornado was barreling toward a child and a parent. The child saw a butterfly person hovering above and protecting them. And in both stories, the parent and child emerged unharmed. The more that these accounts circulated, the more children came forward saying that they too saw the butterfly people. Some said the butterfly people were angels, some called them an indescribable presence, some saw them as small, some saw them as large. My point being is this, that you cannot live your life in fear, because you don't know what's out there waiting to help you if you let it. So don't allow all these stories to keep you in fear, but sit back, learn to be the observer, stay in your center, keep your boundaries safe and protected. There are no safe places, only safe people. You must develop a safe mind pattern, and you must know how to remove yourself from fear. So keeping this in mind, I'm going to start with the regular news. So here we go. First of all, of course, there have been a lot of declassified files, as you know, this last week or so. And in one of them, it said that the CIA actually found Hitler alive in Colombia, South America, in 1954. Now, of course, Stewart and I have been telling you this for many years, that Hitler did escape Nazi Germany, and here we have basically, again, the proof. This time, this particular story goes on to say that thousands of Nazis are believed to have fled to South America after the collapse of the Third Reich, including Joseph Mengele, Auschwitz's Angel of Death, and Adolf Eichmann, who was the architect of the Holocaust. They took routes that became known as rat lines, which generally led to either Spain or Italy, where fascist sympathizers were able to smuggle them to South America. They usually wound up in Uruguay, Paraguay, Colombia, Brazil, Mexico, Guatemala, Chile, Ecuador, and Bolivia, and of course on to Argentina. In fact, Argentina's president at the time, Juan Perón, was a known sympathizer of Hitler and actively sought to rescue members of his regime from Europe. He even created an Alpine-themed town in Argentina that they felt secure enough to recreate Hitler's holiday home of Berchtesgaden. This home, along with plentiful Nazi artifacts uncovered there over the years, led many to believe that Hitler himself visited there, although nobody has provided proof. Once in South America, the Nazis were provided with blank identity documents that allowed them to assume new lives, often in barbed wire ringed settlements away from prying eyes. So, continual proof that what we tell you before they tell the public, we are telling you because we know. And of course, independence is big going on right now in the EU. We've been talking about what's been going on in Catalonia, that Catalonia wants to be independent, and now there's concern that that could spark a domino effect, which would plunge the European Union into a crisis. Now, the Basque country, where nationalists have wanted political unity for all Basque-speaking people in Spain and France since the 19th century, are also considering calling for independence. But what was interesting to me is that now apparently there are regions in Italy, the Veneto and Lombardi, that are calling for more independence from the central government. Apparently these two regions are backing demands for more independence. This is the northeastern regions of Veneto and Lombardi, which held consultative referendums asking citizens whether they would support calls for autonomy from Rome. Now, these elections or referendums were actually done under the compliance of the country's constitution, but they are not binding on Rome. Independence campaigner Franco Tonello said, quote, "The future is a Europe of many different people. We are not the only ones. Everyone has a right to decide its own administration." Now, this was very interesting, his statement. "Our culture has been forgotten. Our children are not taught the history of the Republic of Venice, but a history that was never ours." So this to me is a very major statement, because this obviously is going on all over the world, and these are people who are embedded in their culture. For those of you who have visited Italy or any of these type of European communities that are rich in history, they want their history, not what's being foisted upon them. So I thought that was very interesting. The two regions ruling Lega Nord party was established in the 1990s to campaign for an independent state called Padania, stretching across Italy's north, again from around Lombardy in the west to Venice in the east. Now, apparently, as during this referendum, Italy's wealthiest regions have voted overwhelmingly for greater autonomy. Millions of people in Lombardy and Veneto, both run by once openly secessionist Lega Nord party, voted more than 90% for yes in the referendum, calling to negotiate a better financial arrangement with Rome. So that was extremely interesting, because there's a lot of money at stake for the government of Italy. So we're seeing more people wanting their own independence. We're having, again, these kind of civil wars that are going on in the U.S. that we're seeing now. We're now seeing this extending into Europe. Ex-Prime Minister Matteo Renzi said he blasted the growth of right-wing populism in Italy, branding it very dangerous. He quit as prime minister last year after losing a referendum on constitutional reform, saying ungovernability in Italy is a great risk. So, see what's going to happen with Italy. That sounds very interesting. And it sounds a lot like what's going on in the U.S. People are revolting, but I believe they're trying to control the revolt. We'll see. And then we're seeing all over the world World War III. Now, this is what they are throwing out there, again, to try and hold you in fear, because when you're afraid, you will go to whoever helps you at the moment. So, fear, fear, fear is out there. For example, North Korea, always in the news right now. It says now World War III fears increase as India wades into North Korea row. Okay? India refused to cut ties with North Korea despite pressure from the U.S. because it's on relatively friendly terms with India, with both states maintaining embassies in their respective capital cities. While India is a critic of North Korea's aim of becoming a nuclear power, the country still exports tens of millions of pounds worth of goods to North Korea every year. A BBC survey in 2014 revealed almost 1/4 of all Indians believe North Korea is having a positive impact on the world. I thought that was very interesting. In recent months, the U.S. has been pushing for India to cut ties with North Korea, but India is not having any part of that. And here we have another World War III alert, and this was just interesting because it was talking about there's a huge demand for luxury nuclear bunkers as super rich plan for war. So in other words, if you are not rich, then you are not safe. And that's not so. Like I just told you, whatever's in your mind pattern. You will be surprised when you read all the books that Stewart and I have read about all the people who are helped in very strange and mysterious ways that cannot be explained in everyday reality. But it's out there. Safe mind patterns, that's what's the most important thing. I've been talking to you about the kneeling controversy with the NFL players, and I'm just going to briefly touch upon this because they're calling this an unprecedented action when a referee walked off a football field after high school players kneeled during the anthem. And this article goes on to say we've had player protests, band protests, cheerleader protests, and now referee protests. So this happened apparently on October 27th when several players from Monroe High in New Jersey kneeled during the national anthem before their game. A referee and his son, a line judge, stormed off the field. So anyway, they made a big deal about it. I realize it's only high school, but it's setting the frequency for everything to happen. And then some weeks ago, I did talk to you about a man named Sam Clovis, who had been nominated for Trump's USDA's chief scientist. Now, at the time I told you he had no scientific background, and it was very strange that he would therefore be nominated for this scientific position. What was most interesting to me about this article was it was on AOL, and they had the headlines, and you click on the headlines and it takes you to an article. So the headline says, Sam Clovis withdraws his nomination as USDA's chief scientist citing blood sport attack. Now, I've been telling you to watch for all these blood type of things because this has to do with New World religion. So when I clicked on the article to see what it had to say, there was absolutely no verbiage in that article that said blood sport attack. But when you're just scrolling through, this is going to imprint on the subconscious mind of all the people who are reading these kind of headlines. So keep that in mind. Donald Trump. Now this one, it was interesting because I watched when the Donald Trump and the First Lady had welcomed the Halloween trick-or-treaters through the White House, and they were passing out candy and everybody was moving along and all these little kids, and all of a sudden this kind of adult-sized TRex shows up with the bag and it kind of walks by. I thought, well, that's interesting. It's obviously very obvious in front of the camera, right? Well, within about 30 minutes, there was an article on the same news service this time, and this one says Trump awkwardly avoided a T-Rex at the White House because, again, they are imprinting you with reptilians. So everybody had to look at this, go over and over and over again about how he avoided it. So while they're imprinting you, you're watching it. If they hadn't said anything, it'd be one time and it would be gone, but they always want to show you whatever it is they want to show you, and you will look at it simply because it's there. And this next article is very interesting, circulating on the internet. This was actually a little speech by White House Economic Advisor Gary Cohn. Now, during his speech, he says that the average American family of four earning $100,000 a year would get a $1,000 tax break under GOP tax plan. First of all, I was thinking about how many average families of four actually earn $100,000 a year. Not too many that I know. And not only that, I will tell you, maybe I was thinking if both parents are working, that's more of a possibility. But that means they have a lot of expenses if they both have to work. Just simply maintaining your autos, your insurance, your home, commute, all those things add up. And a $1,000 tax break, he says that how much good it would do for the economy. He said it would generate growth, it would upgrade the standard of living for Americans. Quote, if we allow a family to keep another $1,000 of their income, what does that mean? They can renovate their kitchen, or really, I don't think you can even, well, I wonder what you could buy. You might be able to buy a dishwasher for $1,000, but I don't know, you might not even be able to get a dishwasher for $1,000, much less renovate the entire kitchen. You can buy a new car for $1,000, I don't think so. They can take their family on a vacation, I'm thinking for $1,000, a family of four on, I don't think so, unless maybe they go to a local motel or hotel. Other than that, and that's about it. They're not going to four with $1,000. He goes on to say they can increase their lifestyle. That's what our tax plan has to do. And again, I don't think so. So why in the world this person was even allowed to say this unless it was to make a fool of himself, because obviously it's very, very foolish. And a little bit of news overseas. Now we just passed up, of course, Halloween, October 31st. But the interesting article to me was because a lot of Europe has not embraced Halloween because it's seen as an American thing and they don't want to fall into that. And I've told you many times that Halloween has to do with ritual, astral ritual. Now they're saying in Britain they are finally turning to Halloween, and that is actually having a market frenzy about it. This year they're estimating that Britons will spend £320 million on Halloween festivities. Apparently in 2001 they only spent £12 million. The lengthy queues outside, building up outside some London costume emporia this year, as in recent years, attest to the event's increasing acceptance in Britain's popular culture. One of the costume shop managers, Andrew, who has a shop called Angel, said the queues we have are ridiculous and people are happy to queue. I can't tell you the enormity of it. So to me that's not a good thing, but I thought it was an interesting thing. And then we have Russia. Always Russia in the news. Of course, our favorite Russian isn't here to comment, but you can think about this and make your own comment, because it's interesting to me. We're seeing more female leaders now being put forward. I told you that New Zealand now has its youngest prime minister ever. And here in Russia, there's a woman, Ksenia Sobchak, a Russian TV personality who plans to run against Vladimir Putin in next year's presidential election. She's only 35 years old. Now here's the kicker. Not only is she female and her age, but she says that she will not personally insult him in the campaign because he's a family friend. Apparently this woman is the daughter of a former mayor of St. Petersburg for whom Putin once worked. Then she said she wants to provide an alternative choice for Russian voters who are frustrated with mainstream politicians. And goes on to say, I tell you honestly, I'm running against everyone, and this refers to Vladimir Putin, but I will personally not insult Putin. For some, he's a tyrant and a dictator, but for me, this is a person who first of all helped my father in a difficult situation and de facto saved his life. So it's a lengthy article. You can read it if you want, but the point is what's going on here. I don't think it's to have a legitimate election, but who knows. Then aliens. Aliens, aliens, aliens. Always in the news, right? So again, I'm reading the headlines, and the headlines say, are these celebrities aliens? Hollywood stars that some believe aren't really human. So again, they're putting this into your subconscious mind because these are the catchphrases that are out there. And then they list 15 celebrities who have used the word alien or who have had the word alien used about them, such as Michael Jackson, David Blaine, Lady Gaga, and so on and so forth. So I just put this in there because I told you, watch for these buzz phrases, and this will begin to tell you more and more about what they're doing. And last week, I did tell you about the robot named Sophia, who was demonstrated at the Future Investment Initiative. Anyway, I also told you about the Saudi Arabia the Saudi Arabia city of Neom, which they're planning on building, like a $500 billion city. So Sophia has been granted citizenship in Saudi Arabia. She is the first robot in the world to be granted citizenship. Now what's interesting is this robot now has more rights than females in Saudi Arabia. And Sophia goes on to tell the audience, quote, I'm very honored and proud of this unique distinction. And then the article says it did not elaborate on the details of its citizenship. So we don't exactly know what this means, but I will tell you, as I was looking at Sophia, that it's interesting whenever they show you these robots that they don't show them completely human. Like in Sophia, she has her back open so you can see the neural network. They show her without arms and with arms. They show robots with legs and without legs. They show all these various things. So in your mind, when you look at whatever this creation is, artificial intelligence, you know that it is a robot and not a person. And if they put forward the robots that they actually have, who are very, very much humanoid-like, if they put that forward, then you would doubt if it really was a robot. So this way they're opening the frequency and they are entraining you to understand that this is a robot. And pretty soon you will not be able to tell the difference. So step by step, they're helping you to understand it. And along that lines, there is a robot creator, Sergi Santos, who is responsible for designing one of the first sex bots known as Samantha, hopes that one day humans and their technology will be having children. He claims that he is able to mix human characteristics with artificially intelligent robots to 3D print their offspring. He says that the robot, rather than actually giving birth, will merge the AI personality with the characteristics and personality of its accompanying human and then have the child 3D printed. He said he will use the brain that he's already created. He will program it with a genome so he or she could have moral values, plus concepts of beauty, justice, and the values that humans have. Then to create a child with this robot, it would be extremely simple. I would make an algorithm of what I personally believe about these concepts and then shuffle it with what she thinks and then 3D print it. So there you go. Robots in the workplace is next. Humans now, they claim, will want to undergo treatments to be elite super workers so that they can beat robots out of jobs. So therefore humans will want to be medically enhanced super workers so that they can compete with robots for the best jobs. And they're saying by the year 2030 this is going to happen, which means it's happening already and probably going to be much sooner than that. And continuing on our outer space theme, scientists are now planning to halt global warming by dimming the sun. Now I was thinking, how in the world are they going to do that? Oh yeah, how about a volcano eruption? Because if we have a volcano eruption, which Stewart and I have been telling you about, then all the ash is going to be in the air and that will add to the creation of an ice age. But they're going to tell you that this is going to stop global warming. So let's see what happens with this one. Then also there was a surprise discovery of a giant planet which completely turns scientific theory on its head. This giant planet is the size of Jupiter. It has been discovered orbiting a star only half the size of the Sun, which therefore contradicts previous theories on planet formation. Again, history is changing every time we turn around. And here's one of those phrases that stuck in my head when I saw it, because they're doing imprinting of that subconscious mind again. Here we have scientists believing that they found a comet in our solar system that came from outer space in an astonishing first. And guess what? This mystery object just might be our first visitor from another solar system. That's what the article says. It says astronomers around the world are trying to track down a small, fast-moving object. The space agency, NASA, doesn't even know where it came from, but it's not behaving like the local space rocks, and that means it may not be from our solar system. If that's confirmed, NASA says, quote, it would be the first interstellar object to be observed and confirmed by astronomers. And back on Earth, under the sea, have you seen the article about crystal pyramids found beneath the Bermuda Triangle? These were discovered by a Dr. Meyer Verlag using sonar imaging. Apparently, there's a 500,000 kilometer square patch of ocean where these 2,000 meters beneath the surface pyramids have been found, and they're saying that they're larger, or actually 3 times the size of the Great Pyramid of Giza. So we'll see what more information they find and bring out. But what they're already telling you is that they're there, and in this article they talk about how they could be power generators and so on and so forth. And if you've read Blue Blood and True World History, which we've talked about, this talks a lot about the Bermuda Triangle, the Great Pyramids, how pyramids are built, on and on and on. So again, a lot of this is kind of old news to our readers and listeners, but now it's in traditional news. And then this article was of particular interest to me because 6 years ago, NBC Nightly News predicted that all Americans would be fitted with RFID microchips by the year 2017. And now here we are coming to the close, right? Well, there's a bill that recently passed by the House here in the U.S. That would bring microchipped population closer to reality before the year's end. This bill would allow the U.S. Attorney General to award grants to law enforcement for the creation and operation of locative tracking technology programs. H.R. 419 would authorize federal grants to local agencies to fund the voluntary use of tracking devices to locate and safeguard patients with dementia or developmental disabilities such as autism. The bill is known as Kevin and Avante's Law, and the idea, of course, behind it is to help mentally disabled people who are microchipped so they would be easy to locate if they get lost. And of course, most people here in the U.S. now think nothing of microchipping their pets for the same reason. If they're lost, they can find them. So this idea of giving police the authority to decide who is microchipped and who is not based on their mental soundness is a problem. Even the dislike of authority is considered a mental disorder, which I didn't know this. It's called oppositional defiant disorder, unquote. That's a diagnosis that you can actually have, and the police, of course, and a medical person can say you have that. So the bill opens the door to give police the ability to microchip dissenters and force cooperation on the part of the general population. In other words, if you don't go along with the mass conditioning, you could be labeled mentally ill and branded with a track and control chip. At the first sign of suspicious behavior, a troubling social media profile, or a misunderstanding during an encounter, police and medical personnel will have the authority to declare someone mentally disabled, such as incapacitated, temporarily insane, of unsound mind, or whatever label is handy, and therefore they can chip you. The program's mission currently is to find individuals with forms of dementia or children with developmental disabilities who have wandered from safe environments. However, there are no restrictions on the tracking programs that include other individuals. In other words, the government will decide who is mentally fit and who must be tracked. The law, Kevin and Avante's Law, makes it legal for police to track certain U.S. citizens despite the fact that their privacy is guaranteed by the Constitution's Fourth Amendment. So all kinds of things going on out there, which is going to continue, as you know. And New World Religion, again, here's an article which I found extremely interesting. This was The View. Most of you are familiar with that television show. On The View, the hosts were discussing a British study that showed that many of the UK's Christian citizens wanted to ignore 4 of the 10 commandments. Then one of the co-hosts, Paula Ferris, who's a Christian, explained how things were in her house when she was a kid. She said, quote, "My parents were really strict about what we said in the home. We could not say, oh my God, we could not say JC, we could not say," and when she said the word Jesus, they actually bleeped out that word. Then she said that if you were praising him, then you could say Jesus, but that word again was censored. So, according to this article, and in an apparent attempt to be politically correct, apparently you cannot now say the name of Jesus because you might upset people. And here we go. Feminist marries herself and then she cheats on herself. Apparently feminists now have a ritual of marrying themselves. And then here's a woman who was talking about how wonderful that is, but she grew tired of herself and found herself in a relationship with a man who had an affair. So she was cheating on herself, I guess. But then the man ditched her for himself and he wound up marrying himself. So go figure. Anyway, this woman says marrying yourself is a lifelong commitment to be responsible for your own happiness, so divorce is not an option. It just, like I said, it's amazing this stuff gets pressed, but it does. And pedophilia, here you go again, Woody Allen. Apparently his next film features a sex scene between a 44-year-old man and a 15-year-old girl. Jude Law plays a middle-aged married man who has a relationship with a 15-year-old concubine played by Elle Fanning. And as you remember, in 1992, Woody Allen separated from his partner Mia Farrow because it was revealed that he was having an affair with their adopted daughter, Soon-Yi Previn. She was 21 years old at the time, but she was still 36 years his junior, and they had raised her as their child. Then shortly after that breakup, Mia Farrow accused Woody Allen of molesting their other adopted daughter, who was 7 years old at the time. So there were no criminal charges, but the stigma has always stayed with him. Now, in this article, they talk about Harvey Weinstein's sexual misconduct. As where I was thinking about the Harvey Weinstein, because we always do things in 3 for programming triggers, correct? So we have Harvey, the movie, which we discussed, The White Rabbit. We have Harvey Weinstein, all about the sexual misconduct. And we had Harvey the Hurricane, which did a lot of destruction. So here we have Harvey, and then Woody Allen talking about that this is a witch hunt. And I told you these are terms to listen for. And he called it also a Salem atmosphere, where every guy in an office who winks at a woman is suddenly having to call a lawyer to defend himself. So they're saying, okay, there's nothing wrong with this, so here we go. The film is called A Rain Day in New York, and it is actually currently shooting in New York City. And one scene shows Law's character having a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old concubine who actually convinces him that she's 21 years old, but the point is she's only 15, and so this is where the film is heading. I tell you, pedophilia, one of these days, is going to be legal. So, not that I approve of that, because a lot of people have written in comments, I don't approve of that, but I'm just watching the trend and what they're trying to do and how they're leading your minds. You also might have heard about what's going on in Madagascar. They're calling it the Black Death, because in Madagascar, during the months of July, or through the months of July and October, apparently they dig up their dead relatives to dance with them in an ancient ritual called turning of the bones. So during that time, the relatives dig up their loved ones, have the deceased body rewrapped, they parade them through the streets while dancing with them. And now they're saying that this ritual is being blamed for the rise and spread of Black Death plague across the nation. Apparently, they're calling this twin horrors. Remember, that's a programming trigger, anything to do with twin horrors of bubonic plague and pneumonic plague have infected more than 1,500 people, and they say that figure is growing. Now, in the 14th century, the Black Death spread across the Mediterranean and Europe, killing up to 60% of Europe's total population. In fact, they think that more than 100 million may have perished. Madagascar, as you know, is an island off of the coast of Southeast Africa. Officials trying to stop the rapidly spreading disease say that the disease has a 100% fatality rate if not treated, and have told residents to stop practicing the ritual of turning the bones. Apparently, people are saying that that's not true, that the plague is a lie. And that's not the case. So is it another scare tactic? Because most people aren't going to go to Madagascar, especially if they have this terrible thing. So are you really going to know? And are they going to tell you that it's spreading into Africa? I don't know. We're going to find out. And then I have actually recently found out that we had a whole bunch of comments in the on our YouTube channel that were in the spam and all kinds of things going on, but I tried to read through them. Some of them were just a few months old, some of them were a year or two old, but regardless, what I want to tell you first of all is if you have a question for Stewart and I. We don't do the questions on YouTube because we are so busy doing everything that we already do. We do have a question and answer blog on our website where for less than $1 per day, you can join us, and we do take questions there that are of interest to the general membership. So general questions. If you have a specific question that's specific to you and your situation, that would require a personal consultation. So a couple of things that happened besides that. One thing is this, people kept asking over and over, what's the Mandela Effect? Do you believe in the Mandela Effect? Can you comment on the Mandela Effect? So I looked it up because honestly I hadn't heard about it. And the definition I got was the Mandela Effect is a collective misremembering of a fact or event. Various theories have been proposed to explain what causes it, some more sensible than others. So this collective memory, remembering, that's the bottom line. And then it goes on to say, one theory based on principles of quantum mechanics holds that people who experience the Mandela Effect may have slid between parallel realities, a la science fiction TV series Sliders. So, first of all, I want to tell you, most people who talk about quantum mechanics and quantum physics do not have a clue what they're talking about. That's the new buzzword, quantum physics, quantum mechanics. Unless you have a really strong mathematical background and you go to school and you study physics at a 4-year university minimum, you're not going to have a clue. So they're throwing out these buzzwords so you think, geez, they must know what they're talking about, but they don't. So I was thinking about all of this, And I thought, okay, here's something that you can relate to, I think, which I would not call the Mandela Effect, which basically is a made-up term which means nothing. But when Stewart and I were on our recent tour of the Southwest, we went to Smokey Bear Historical Park, or Monument, whatever they call it. And they said, do you know that it's Smokey Bear and not Smokey the Bear? Well, I grew up with it Smokey the Bear. And there used to be a joke saying, what is Smokey's middle name? And people would say, Smokey doesn't have a middle name. And then they would go, oh no, his middle name is the. So I grew up with that. Now they're saying Smokey Bear has no middle name and the was never there. So have they changed it? I don't know. But I definitely remember that Smokey had a middle name and it was the. So what I want to tell you is that this is how things get started. It's not because we have collective memory in the sense they're trying to tell you about. It's because some teacher told this story or somebody wrote an article and they told it to a bunch of kids like me, and then we talked about it amongst ourselves, and then we spread all over and we had our families and so on and so forth. So now we go back and they tell us Smokey the Bear doesn't have a middle name. There is no the there. It has nothing to do with the Mandela Effect. It has nothing to do with this made-up term Mandela Effect. This is just what happens in life. There's people who hear things and rumors get spread, and next thing you know, it's true in somebody's mind, or it's written another way, or they change it in history. So when you hear these kind of terms, it is technically just, it's a figment of their imagination that they're using to try to control you. So remember, please, you always have a support system at expansions.com. And I want to remind you, if you want to know about mind control and programming, true reality of sexuality, okay, and 13 Cube. Both of these books are really great. You can fit them in one envelope. I've told you the more books that you can put in, usually about 4 is the max, to maximize the effect, because postage is ridiculous, which is one way that they want you to be controlled by buying these books on Kindle. If you buy them on Kindle, with a press of the button, your information is gone. If you have it in print, it's much more challenging for them to take it away from you. So the Hyperspace Helper, Hyperspace Plus, Healing Archetypes and Symbols, all of these will help you find out what you need to know to get through life. And of course, True World History, Blue Blood, True Blood, if you want to know true history. So, as you may remember, our next big events on Nevis in the Caribbean, which is of course part of Atlantis. We will be there in December 28th through January 3rd, and we have a nice program planned. We are inviting you to join us. We have people already coming from all over the world. We have them coming from the US, from Australia, from the UK. We have them coming from everywhere. So if you're interested, you can find the details on the website. In January is our most intense class, so a lot of people say, how can we get more information? We want to go deeper, we want to know more. January class, it's a fantastic 5-day course which we are totally immersed in hyperspace oversoul techniques. Some people, if you can't come that time because this is our most intense class of the year, some people elect to choose a day with Stewart, and you can go 1 through 5 days if you want. You can bring your friends. You can ask personal questions. If you have a personality profile done, a lot of people like to bring that with them so that they can go over that and get all the information that they need for a great jump start in 2018. So with that said, I want to thank all of you for your continuing support. And next week, Stewart will be back, so that will be nice to hear his comments on the news. And remember to like our Facebook page. I want you please to share the YouTube videos, subscribe, send us a comment, let us know what's going on in your mind. Let us know what you think about what's going on. If you have more information, tell us. That's the other thing. I have some of you who have sent private messages. We cannot make those public, apparently. So if you send us a private message, unless it's like really personal, it would be really great to make it public so other people could comment. Most people don't know who you are anyway, because most people at the YouTube channels, they don't use their real names, so we don't really know who you are. But a private message, if you can make it public, that would be great, because we have a ton of those as well. But again, all your comments, please consider an Expansions membership. Help support our work and research. We have so much information going on all the time. It's just tremendous. It's just hard to wrap our own minds around sometimes, much less I understand what you're going through when you try to wade through our material. Always contact Patricia, customer support at expansions.com if you need help getting through the website, finding what you need. She's great at matching you with a product and service. And this time of year, we all need a little extra help. So remember, you always have a support system at expansions.com. Thank you again for joining me, Janet Diane Moria Swerdlow. I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye.